to play with his memory, right? And the Prophet cannot show this type of weakness. Even Ayub alayhi salam, he had boils on his body, but they were underneath his clothes, not on his face, not on his hands, because anything that will repel you from a prophet is against Nabuwah. A prophet cannot do that. It's impossible for a prophet to have something that will compromise the strength of the da'wah. So many ulama, they say that story is not true, of Labid casting his phone Prophet. I think they started me.
He's doing something with the mic.
He's doing something.
Mic check.
What's interesting is a student of Justin Martyr named Tatian, you don't have to write this down, but Tatian, he actually tried to harmonize all four Gospels, because the pagans at the time were saying, how do you believe this? There's so many contradictions. Because pagans and Christians used to have debates, in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century. Why do you believe these books are all contradictory? So Tatian, he harmonized all of them. It's called the Diatessaron, through 4. All 4 Gospels into a single narrative. And he was able to basically harmonize all the contradictions, except for the genealogies of Isa alayhi salam. Matthew and Luke give 2 completely different genealogies. Yeah?
And you mentioned the Semitic and James. Who is James in this?
Oh yeah, we're gonna cover it.
You said Jamesonian?
Yeah, so James represents Semitic Christianity. James is Ya'qub al-Saddiq, the brother of Isa alayhi salam, the leader of the Fuqara, the Ebyonim in Jerusalem. He's the leader of the Christians in quotes. Right? There's no such thing as Christians at this time. Everyone's Jewish. And they all worship together. They pray together. They fast together.
James is Isa alayhi salam's brother?
Yeah. Yes, we'll talk about why.
Did Isa alayhi salam ever meet Musa alayhi salam?
Musa?
Yeah.
No.
Well, the reason why I bring that is because
not during their ministries, that's not possible, but during the Isra they did meet. Later the Isra, when they prayed on the Temple Mount.
Okay.
The Prophet ﷺ, he met all of the Rusul, at least 313. Some say all of the Nabiyyin were there as well. Allahu A'lam. So, this is really interesting here. Around this time, there was a document written that we're going to call Q. This predates Mark, and it's independent from Paul. Okay? Scholars call it Q, which is German for Quelle, and in Greek it's called Logia. We can call it also the Sayings Gospel. The Q source document. The Q source document. The Sayings Gospel. Okay? There's a document written contemporary with Paul's ministry, so it has not been influenced by Paul. Okay? That Mark summarily ignores. He either doesn't know about it, or he doesn't like it. Who knows? Maybe Q represented Semitic Christianity. And we actually know what Q contains, even though we don't have it. And I'll tell you why. Is because Matthew and Luke, they draw from it. They draw from Q. So let me put this up in a way that's more intelligible. I'm going to just erase this part here. I'm just going to write Mark up here. And I'll show you how Matthew and Luke, what they do with Mark. That's really interesting. You have Mark here around 70. Then you have this document called Q, which is probably written around 45 to 50, maybe even earlier. So then you have Matthew's Gospel around 80 of the Common Era. And Matthew will copy verbatim 80% of Mark. Mark is his skeleton that he builds upon. Okay? Which of course is troubling, because Mark is definitely not a disciple. But Christians believe Matthew is a disciple. Why would a disciple copy from a 10-year-old boy who wasn't even there? Right? Doesn't make any sense. If you're a companion of Isa alayhi salam, and you're an adult, and you were there the whole time, would you depend on the work of a 10-year-old boy? A person who wasn't even there? Nonetheless, 80% of Mark is copied verbatim into Matthew. Matthew at times also makes some editing. He redacts a few things. He doesn't like what Mark does here. He doesn't like his grammar, too much information. Sometimes he changed things. Because in Mark, in a certain pericope, it says a person who's asking Jesus for help keeps begging him, and Jesus became angry. Matthew changed that to, he was filled with compassion. That's not a slip of the pen. That's a completely different verb. Because an angry Jesus doesn't sound very good. Right? He also uses Q. That means he had access to this document. He also has access to another document, or oral tradition, that we're going to call M. And M stands for Special Matthean Material. We'll come back and explain that, inshallah.